got about 16 dialed in, and we've got a few people in person. We've got our HubSpot interns and the main speaker here today, Vourneen Taylor. So Vourneen is actually going to kick off the sales process, which is a 4-session workshop, okay? Very much focused on an area that a lot of people wouldn't be 100% comfortable with. So it's good that you're here, and this is something that you'll actually learn a lot from Vourneen today. And the title of today's presentation is Building a Sales Team and the Actual Process. I would say ask Vourneen as many questions as you can. I worked with her on the consulting team in Dublin. She does have a ton of knowledge from enterprise to small biz, and kind of a wide range of industries. So yeah, welcome Vourneen.
Thank you very much. So as Cara said, my name is Vourneen. It's absolutely fantastic to be here with all of you today, and thanks everybody who's dialing in on Zoom online there as well. It's great that you're all in and engaged in this and participating in this session. So for those of you who may not know, as Cara mentioned, I worked in HubSpot. So it's crazy to come back here and see so many familiar faces again, and it feels really great to be back here, but it's kind of overwhelming because when Cara and I started, there was probably 30 people, maybe
all maximum. On the same floor, yeah.
All on the same floor in a different building.
We were a startup mode, like.
Very much startup mode. So it's crazy to come back here and see the office expansion and see how much has actually changed. So it's really great to see how much HubSpot is growing since we worked here together. And I worked with Cara back in the day to grow out the professional services team, and we're very heavily involved in the selling of that as well and promoting of it. So first of all, big thanks to Cara and also to the HubSpot for Startups team for inviting me here today. Thank you for all of you for being here. And it's, I think, really great to see.
Yeah, well, that's sort of what I touched on. What I
Sorry guys, if you just put yourself on mute there for a sec. It's really great to see what the HubSpot for Startups team is actually doing for the startup community locally here in Ireland. And it's great to see that they're supporting that ecosystem here and nurturing it as well. So I'm really proud to be part of that. This session is going to be really interactive, guys. So I really encourage knowledge sharing. There's a lot of people in the room here, and I'm sure we can all learn from each other as well as what I'm going to present here today. I'm going to be sharing tons of resources, tools, and practical tips so you can really implement what you're learning. So it's really a practical session as well as a theory. And I really want us to kind of participate in the activities as much as possible. There's a couple of different things that we're going to be doing. So by the end of the session today, at least you'll be on the right track to build out your inbound sales process. Sound good? Okay, good stuff. So I have a really easy activity to start us off with, guys, just to get the ball rolling. So for those of you who are dialing in on Zoom, if you want to use the chat pane for this, just saying, hi, my name is Vourneen, my company About Inbound provides inbound marketing training and HubSpot consulting. And for those of you in the room here, I'd love you to get up, walk around, introduce yourself to somebody who you don't know, and just say hi and tell the other person a bit about their company. So don't be shy, guys. We're all friends here. Introduce yourselves. Sam.
Yes, exactly. We had ideas now, once the market comes from these. It's good. Very good. Yeah. Great. Yes. I know the name. Tell me a little bit more.
When is it launched now, yeah? Well, best luck with that,
Guys, get your attention back again. It's a buzz of activity there. Loads of people are very welcoming and eager to explain what they do. That's fantastic.
They're wild.
Very enthusiastic bunch we have, which is great. Karen, we just want to shout out on the chat pane what people have put in there as well. That'd be great. Yeah, include them. Oh, yes, yes.
So the guys in the chat are pretty active today. Well done. So we've got Ian. Ian is from Migloo. We are developing a digital interior design service to help customers have an enjoyable experience. Welcome, Ian. Skill Corridor on the line. We've got Sajish. She is working for a training management system. Welcome. Ollie. He is Ollie Fagan. Company is Oshera, and we develop promotional websites for film distributors like Universal. Big client there. Nice. Welcome aboard, Ollie. Then we've got Shane, and he is artificial intelligence. Great. And the company specializes in agent assistance, artificial intelligence. Welcome, Shane. Collabro, welcome, Nathan, and he is focusing on client interaction. Super. David, welcome to the call. Page Recruit, fantastic. And these guys are focused on recruitment software. Okay,
Perfect. Thanks.
it feels a bit quiet, but we've got a good mix.
That's great. So now that everybody's going to introduce themselves or feel a bit more comfortable and familiar with each other, I guess it's my turn to kind of introduce myself as well. So just give you a bit of background about me. So I have about 15 years experience in marketing. I lived in Melbourne, Australia. I lived in Amsterdam, in the Netherlands. So a lot of international experience as well. I worked in Hubspot for about 4 years, and I started onboarding clients that were new to HubSpot, such as yourselves, to get results quickly from HubSpot. And over the years, I then transitioned into classroom-based training and then in-person training before setting up my own business about inbound. And now I really delve into HubSpot consulting, but I also deliver websites, rebranding, logos. So really a full suite of services and projects that I deliver as well. So in these rooms, I also trained a lot of HubSpot staff internally on inbound sales methodologies and inbound marketing best practices as well. So my goal for today, the focus for today, is really to help you guys to implement better structures when building a sales team. And also number 2, implementing a robust sales process. And I think if you have those 2 key elements together, it helps your sales team sell more efficiently and also at a higher velocity. And in the startup world, that's really what we're aiming for, a scalable, robust revenue stream, something that's repeatable as well. So the next activity, just for a bit of fun, go onto your mobile phone, your laptop, whatever it is, go onto Twitter for me. I have a live poll on Twitter. I have a pinned tweet. So if you search for About Inbound, so twitter.com About Inbound, and just put in your answer there. I'm just looking to get feedback from you. What's stopping you from selling? So the question is, what is the main thing that prevents your sales teams from selling more? And so there's a couple of options there. If there's something that if there's something else that you want to add, just pop it into the comments below. So is it a lack of quality leads, lack of time or productivity, lack of training, or lack of tools? Just have a think about really what's preventing you from selling more today. So at the end of the session, I will also be sharing the results of the Twitter poll with you guys, so you see what other people might be challenged with as well. And hopefully by the end of the session, we're able to solve some of those challenges for you. Any problems logging in? Everybody's cast their vote, guys?
There's only one vote here.
No,
seriously.
Just refresh there.
Sorry, refresh.
Not popular.
So what have you been
So far, but then I suppose you need to get it.
You cast your vote as well. Perfect, yeah. Productivity, quality leads coming up there as well. I think time is a big issue for a lot of startups. Would you agree? Is time a big issue for you guys? A lot of people going yes. No time, no, and budget is also hard as well. So time and productivity is a key one there. Okay, so I'll give you a few more moments to log in there and cast your vote, and we'll be coming back to this later on today. But let's dive in, guys, to building out a sales team. So a couple of core things that I want to go through here. And the main thing I want you guys to think about is, now that you're all in that kind of startup and scale up mode, it's a great opportunity to think about your processes and think about the culture of the organization. What do you want your organization or startup to be? What do you want it to become? And instead of thinking in silos and individual departments or individual teams, I want you to think about how you can work as an organization, as a team. So thinking about not just your own department, but you want the whole company to be working as a team. So you want to be thinking about yourself as not just a sales team, but a revenue team. Okay. And the reason for this, I'll explain now in a few slides. So you might have seen the stat before, 70% of buyers, research is done before they even talk to sales. So when we consider that statistic and you think about your own organizations or your own businesses, think about what department is actually having the greatest impact on sales. Is it only sales, or is there other departments that are helping drive that revenue, that sale? Similarly, when we think about renewals and revenues from renewals, 70 to 95% of revenue actually comes post-sale. So after that initial sale, especially for SaaS startups, the renewals are key, getting people coming back, and also upsells and add-ons. So thinking again about your own organization, your own business, what department is having the greatest impact on revenue? Is it just sales, or maybe it's services? Maybe marketing is involved, maybe product is also involved. So there's different elements of your team or your organization that's actually contributing to overall sales. So what I'm getting at, it's a team effort. So think of your company or your organization as a team working together to drive that revenue. And if you haven't seen it already, or you haven't had a chance to go to the, has anybody gone to the Inbound conference? Hands up. One person in the room, Cara. There's, if you go to inbound.com, there's all the content from last year and previous years there that you can have a look at. There's one keynote in particular that was by Dharmesh Shah and Brian Hannigan last year, and it speaks to vector alignment, and it's getting all the individuals in an organization working together. So vectors being individual contributors, all in alignment, working towards one goal. It also talks to how difficult it is to actually scale up. So it's easier today to start a business or start an organization, but it's really tricky and difficult to actually scale that business and be successful for that. So if you haven't seen that keynote, definitely worth checking it out. So I'll give you a few moments just to read through this slide, guys. So just building on the previous slides there, we're talking about revenue, we're talking about post-sale, we're talking about how to actually reach those target companies. You might be thinking about your target company or the organization that you want to connect with, but you might have different individuals within that organization that you want to connect with or communicate with. So that's why it's really important to define a target company, or at an account level or a company level, as well as your buyer personas. And what I'm talking about here is a buyer profile. Has anybody done sketched out a buyer profile before? It's different to a buyer persona now, it's buyer profile, so it's at the account or company level. Yeah, a few in the room, that's great. And I'm sure everybody knows what companies they're trying to sell to, but maybe the characteristics and the definition of those organizations mightn't be documented or defined and shared with the whole organization. And this is something very simple to do, but it's very effective because it really laser focuses you on your sales activity. So the next activity is really simple, guys. 4 questions. Get out your notebooks, your laptops, your phones, and take out the Mamo functionality in your phone, whatever it is, or if you're dialing in from Zoom, just use the chat pane. Just make sure when you're answering question 1, just put in 1 before your answer. So number 1, are there customer sizes that are ideal, not ideal? Number 2, how do you actually define size? Are you going for large businesses, but what defines large? Is it number of employees? Is it revenue? Is it another metric that you're looking at? Are there geographic locations that are ideal or not ideal? Are you selling to the whole world, the universe, just Europe? Where are you actually selling to? And what types of businesses do you sell to? Is it only B2B? Is it also B2C, e-commerce, software? What other types of businesses do you sell to? So take a few moments, I'll give you a few moments just to think about exactly those things and thinking about the ideal, and also the not ideal is also good to rule out. So interns will be quizzing you on this in a few moments.
Champagne is all of a sudden not very active.
So guys, just pop into the chat pane who your ideal customers are. What kind of customer sizes? Are you aiming for small, medium business? What kind of geographic locations are important for you? What kind of types of businesses are you looking at? Okay, guys, so for the people in the room, anybody want to volunteer what they've sketched out already? Do people taking notes here?
Jeez, where you do as much time, like. The whole buyer profile in 30 seconds.
Yeah, go for it, yeah.
So our target audience normally are SMEs, size under 100 employees,
100 employees, yeah,
and
right.
then of course then the software tech space, because then we have more tech savvy employees.
Brilliant.
And the initial target audience tech region is Europe.
Europe. Okay. And is there any things that are not ideal? So things that if a lead came in, you're like, actually, no, this is not a good fit for us.
Large enterprises initially because of the tender process. We need something quick and fast.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but then of course we still work on them, but some note like on the side.
Sure. That makes sense. Yeah.
Difficult for.
And it's good to define that as well. So knowing what your customers you want to speak to, and also the customers you don't want to speak to, because they're going to be wasting your time. And we spoke to that earlier. Time and productivity is essential for startups, especially in sales.
Quick question from
Sure.
the chat there. So Ian wants to know if there is a variant on this for a B2C business, or would we define the ideal individual buyer profile?
Sure. So it depends on your distribution network, if you're going direct to B2C, or is there a distribution model where you might be interacting with warehouses or different distributors to get your product to the consumer market. Amazon also, are you selling via Amazon? That's actually another way to get to market as well. Where are you actually selling? Is it straight from your website or other models? Where do you want to actually target your consumers? But great point, yeah. So you're just thinking about building that profile for your buyers, and also within that ecosystem. So if you're thinking about maybe 25 to 35-year-olds in an urban environment, is there potential add-ons or upsells to build out that ecosystem? Is their brother or sister going to buy from that product? For example, Netflix, I have 3 or 4 different people using my Netflix account. So it's growing that consumer base. So if you're a B2C company, think about that. How are you actually going to grow that ecosystem? Who else can you add on and sell to? Does that make sense, guys? Yeah. Any other thoughts from the room? Don't be shy, guys. We're all friends.
What's the difference between a buyer profile and a buyer persona?
Great question. So a buyer persona is just the individual user. So that individual person, the end user that's going to buy for your product. But it's a characteristic, kind of like a stereotype of your ideal customer. Whereas a buyer profile is the account level. It's the company that you're going after. That structure of who you're going for. Any other questions, guys? All good so far? Anybody else want to share their buyer profile in the room? Any ideas? Go for it, come on.
Yeah, I think I would like to share. So we're also focusing on SMEs.
Yeah.
I think for us, the ideal customer would have sort of some level of knowledge on we sell to SMEs who are looking for public sector contracts. So they would have some sort of like previous experience on that. So they have whether it's positive or negative. And for us, I think geographic locations would be, I don't know, Ireland, UK mostly. So I think, yeah.
Great, thank you for sharing. That's great. And when you're thinking about your buyer profiles and who you're actually really targeting, you should really be mapping your mapping the buyer to the seller as well. This is an example of a company persona or a buyer profile, and it goes into a little bit more detail here. So we just had a few moments to sketch out some initial company attributes, but you might want to sketch down as well what their ideal mindset might be, common industries, and team characteristics as well. So you're really focusing on uniting behind a single company persona or individual persona instead of focusing on just one specific user. So the approach is matching your buyer. You're thinking about your buyer. Maybe you're selling to the UK, Ireland market, but next year you could be expanding to Europe. So what does that mean for your building your sales team? Do you need different language skills? If you're developing different products, perhaps you're developing a product for the e-commerce or SaaS market, do you need expertise in that area? When you're thinking about things as you scale, think about your buyer and build your team around your customer and their needs. Does anybody know what the H to H stands for here?
Human.
Yes, you got a gold star.
For money.
Like converted the points.
And that's really all about inbound sales, is having that human approach. So human to human communications, human to human messaging, and you're personalizing the whole experience from the buyer to the seller as well. So it's very important. But let's just take a step back and think about your own organizations. Who's actually doing the selling? So we talked about those earlier statistics, right? So if you have a freemium SaaS model, or maybe you have a touchless sale, there's some people here who have business to consumer models. They might be selling directly to consumer. So who's actually doing the selling? Is it your website that's doing the selling? Is it the content that's doing the selling? Are the sales reps doing the selling if it's a sales-led model? So maybe you need different skill sets within your team to actually effectively sell. You might need a UX designer if your website is doing most of the selling. You might need a content writer if your content is doing most of the selling there. So placing emphasis when you're building a team on the right skill set is also essential. So a couple of things just to bear in mind here as you're building out your teams. And a lot of you will probably be at scale up stage doing a lot of hiring. So looking around me here, I'm just fascinated about how many new faces are also in the building here from when I started with 30 people in a room. But I don't know how many people are here now. 300, probably more. So the amount of interviews that have taken place, the amount of hiring that have taken place to get there was quite phenomenal. The one thing that people are really hiring for at HubSpot is coachability. And Mark Roberge, who headed up sales and also services back in the day, and he's written a book on inbound sales, but he probably interviewed thousands of candidates over the years, probably thousands and thousands. And the one thing he was always focused on is coachability. So he'd get people in a room and they do a role play with him. And after the role play, he'd ask them, well, how do you think you did? And he's looking to see if that individual is able to self-assess, how they actually did, were they reflective at all? They show those kind of signs. And then he'd give them some advice, one thing that they did really well, and maybe one thing that could be improved. And gauge if that person is actually really leaning in, taking notes, or is that person just eyes glazed over, don't care about the feedback, right? So if you can move the needle even slightly in a 30-minute interview, imagine what impact that would have for your organization over a year or 2 years if you're able to coach up and support that individual over time.
Quick question there, Vourneen. Sorry to stop you. Just a chat there from Michelle. She just wants to know, why would coachability kind of be over experience in terms of interviews?
Startups change constantly, right? So things change all the time. So even though you have experience, that's great to start off with, but as things change and develop, you need to be coached and trained for those new skill sets and those new changes that come up. So I think if you're able to work with somebody and train them up and get them to where they need to be. It's much more effective than you just have a static skill set of experience from maybe 10 years ago, 5 years ago, whatever. So I think working also with people that are coachable creates a better team environment. You know, you can coach each other and work with each other, learn from each other as you grow and scale up. But yeah, I think coachability is definitely a key one. Experience is great, but you can also coach and train and support something to where they need to do. And culture is also really important for an organization, especially as they're growing, and in particular for employer branding. So I think Hubspot does a really good job of this, and I think they have an inbound approach to their recruitment. People who really want to work for Hubspot has a big name, and it has a good name for being an employer as well. So think about the culture and trying to attract talent to your organization. What can you do to stand out above the competition? Especially in Dublin, it's very hard to hire talent here. So think as you're growing and as you're scaling, how are you going to acquire that talent? Do you have a good name out there? What are you doing to promote yourself to attract the right talent? And always be helping. So having a culture internally of helping each other. And I know, Cara, myself, back in the day when we were just getting started with the professional services team and developing all these different services, we need to rely and help each other to grow in our individual roles. And we leaned on sales, we leaned on product, we leaned on everything, all the other different teams and support to grow that professional services team. So having that culture of helping and being open with each other, I think is really, really key. I'm going to pick on the two lovely interns here as well. So just talking about employer branding, like you could have done an internship with any organization in Dublin. Was there a particular reason why you chose HubSpot? Did you know about HubSpot before? Did it give you good opportunities?
I found it on LinkedIn, so I did a lot of research behind it. And my dad works in Dell, so he spoke to some of his colleagues, and literally as soon as he mentioned HubSpot, everyone went wild. They were like, "Oh my gosh, like it's ridiculous." The fact that they were saying that, like, I'm only 20, and to be doing something like this at such an early stage in my career will definitely benefit me in years to come, whether it's here or anywhere else. So
yes, that's fantastic.
easy decision.
Brilliant. And that's where you want to get to. You want people to be excited about your brand as an employer and also as an organization as well. People who want to be, you want them to be excited when they hear your name being mentioned. Not an easy thing to do, but it's worth embedding from an early stage. Shared revenue goals equals alignment, and this is something I'm really passionate on as well. So I work with a lot of enterprise organizations as well as scale-ups as well, and I see individual teams and departments just working on their own metrics, which means they're just focused on one thing, not necessarily the company or organization's goals for revenue metrics. So everybody, all the different teams, everybody in your organizations needs to be in alignment around one singular goal. And that should be backed up by senior management with your vision and your mission statements as well. Continual learning, also really key for competitive advantage. Things change rapidly here. Every couple of months there's new technologies, new developments, new things happening. So you need to stay ahead of the game to have that competitive advantage. How are you 6 months from now going to be standing head and shoulders above your competitors? What are you going to be doing? What are you going to be implementing? And constantly learning and developing your skill set. I'd love to hear from those on Zoom or also in the room as well. Is there anything else that you think could be added here to this list? Anything else that as a scale up or a startup that you're really focused on at the moment? How are you hiring talent? Is anybody hiring at the moment? Have you hired new staff yet?
Yeah, I would like to flesh out the number 3 a bit, because there's people that actually push it, do the radical transparency, where if the goal was like around real metrics like revenue, they actually could share the revenue on a daily basis, how the company is doing, right? Because as a startup, I guess, depending on what you're doing, it will be customers or revenue, right? Because it's about fundraising round. So would you advocate that saying if your goal is actually revenue, it should have like where people have the download of the apps on the board, so every day they can actually see?
I think it's something everybody should be mindful of, but it also should be something, what's the end result of that? So if it's just a number with no mission or vision behind it, it's a very dull number. You're not going to be motivated by that one number. But if you're motivated to be the best, maybe you're motivated to be the best organization in the world to do a very specific thing, that's very motivational. 103, I don't know what that's related to, it's just a number. So you have to have meaning behind that number to really get buy-in internally and to drive that alignment. That makes sense. Really good point though.
It's a good question here from Ollie. Just wants to know like how you'd actually implement the shared revenue goals.
I think starting from the top, starting from your CEO, your founders, they need to communicate that vision, that mission to everybody internally. But it also has to be brought up on a regular basis. It's not something that you just bring up once a year at a big meeting and then forget about. It should be brought up at each and every one-to-one meeting with your line manager. It should be brought up at every team meeting, discussed at every level, and see how what you're doing on a day-to-day basis is aligned with that overarching company goal. And if it's not, why not? We should be doing something different.
And is that tied into compensation then for the individual who reaches their target, or?
I would love to see revenue targets being shared and compensation for that with the whole organization. I think sharing revenue across a whole organization is a really good thing and not just siloed to one department, because everybody's making a contribution to that. But it's a big shift to make for a lot of organizations.
Because that's something when we started, like HubSpot early days meeting, like there was quite a few of us, we all had a target or a number, and it wasn't to put us under pressure. That meant we were all like aligned and we had the same goal and we were working towards the mission of growth.
Yeah.
But that involved, you know, Vourneen had to bring in a certain amount every month. This was her target in terms of retention with clients, and you know, someone then Niall in sales, of course, would actually have to align with, you know, making sure that selling to would kind of align as well within his number of
Business is top notch, services, and things like that.
Yeah.
But value for the customer.
Yeah.
It's still an ongoing project.
Yeah.
It doesn't stop.
Doesn't stop.
We don't stop, yeah.
But yeah, so it's, you close the loop, like, so you see like everybody has a number and everybody has, even our product team have a number. They need to align with sales, to align with customer services, and it kind of works well to the overall.
Like I work with a lot of startups on Enterprise Ireland, and I've seen some of the startups, and from the start, even with a small team, they have their whiteboard working, and they might say, look, we have to get out to this customer in 2 months. Now, from the technical point of view, that means you have to hit this, and they have it visually on the board. And so they're working together, and I know one particular startup I was working with said they were working with some technical guys from France who normally, you know, work until 5 o'clock in the evening, different cultures. But they said they bought into the whole thing, and they even were working late with them because they knew there was a common goal, and that they had a part in that common goal. And if they fell, then the sales guy couldn't get where he needed to go. But I suppose behind all of this really is a big thing is it's communicating, talking to one another. If you don't communicate, you can't expect the right hand to know what the left hand is doing. And I suppose if you do that from an early stage, that's a culture you bring into your organization.
Couldn't agree more.
You know,
it's
it's
vital,
like,
absolutely vital, absolutely vital. And something you should constantly just think, are we communicating enough? As you grow and as you scale, it becomes increasingly difficult to do that. So make sure it's on the forefront of what you're doing. Excellent point, Susan. Cool. Okay, so we have an idea of who you're actually targeting. We sketched out your buyer profile. We talked about matching your sales team with that buyer and thinking about your organization as a team. So all the individual contributors working together for an aligned goal. But how do we actually build out a sales process? What are the steps involved? So there's a couple of different things that you might want to think about. And I'm thinking about this from an inbound sales methodology point of view, but there's lots of different other examples of sales methodologies out there. You might be more familiar with the challenger selling or consultative selling or customer focused selling. There's lots of different ones out there. The sales methodology is just the approach your organization is taking to their sales. So what at an organization level you're actually doing. Whereas the process is slightly different. So anybody's taken the inbound sales certification? Hands up. You should have. I was like, oh, sorry, So a couple of people in the room have, that's great. So you're probably familiar with this slide. For those of you who haven't, that's okay as well. We're going to be going into each one of those sections individually in more detail so you can learn how you can apply those sections and the methodology and process to your own organization as well. And I do believe I've consulted with hundreds of different organizations. Everybody's process is unique to their own organization. You're going to have different things going on at different times. That's okay. But once you have a clear and focused process that is shared among the organization, that's really the key. And there's certain things that you need to tick off at each one of those stages, which we'll be going through in more detail. And the process is really the tactical side of things. So it's not the theory, it's the repeatable set of steps that you're doing over and over again to get your prospects or your leads from point A to point B to point C to being a closed won customer.
Yeah, just on that there, in the last few months we've dealt with a load of startups, and surprisingly about 80% actually have their book of business on Excel sheets. And I know it's not, you don't have a lot of time, but like even just getting a CRM like that's free, such as Hubspot or Pipedrive, it'll just give you a lot more visibility on, you know yourself what's going on with the business. I don't know who's on the CSV file or, you know, if you're all on the CRM, but
it also helps when you're coming to go for a round of funding, for example. You know, knowing your numbers and having everything laid out in a clear fashion, accessible for everybody, is also a really good idea. There's different processes as well. Some people might be familiar with MEDDIC for an enterprise level or band. There's different processes out there as well. But for the purposes of this session, I'm really going to be focusing in on the inbound process. And there's two main philosophies. The first philosophy is focusing on the buyer rather than the seller. So human to human approach, you're really focused around the buyer rather than the seller. And the second thing, and most importantly, is to really personalize the entire sales process and sales experience around the buyer's context. So you have that buyer in your mind and understand what their needs are, what their challenges are, what they're looking for, what information do they need, and provide that. Don't just go and send the same email template, the same communication, same message time and time again. Tailor the experience to suit them. You're going to get more out of it. So personalization is key. And the three things you really need to focus on in a sales process for an inbound point of view is being advisory. So you're advising people as much as you can, being buyer-centric, so focusing on the buyer, and personalizing each and every step of the way. So every email communication you're sending, every phone call, every pitch, every brochure you're sending out, try and tailor that communication. There. Cool. So the first step is identify. So it's simple. You're identifying, researching your leads. And so researching leads that are active in the buyer's journey. And active is the key one here. So we sketched out a buyer profile, but that's fairly static information. It doesn't really give us any indication of the intent to purchase or the intent to buy. So how do we do that? So we're thinking about not just a static buyer, but we're thinking about that active buyer. So they're doing things, they're behaving in certain ways to give us an indication that they're interested in purchasing from us. So a couple of things that you can do to kind of understand what buyers or prospects you have that are showing some signs of interest is if you have the free Hubspot tool, or the Hubspot tool, you can use the prospects tool for this as well. There's other tools you can use for this, but you can identify visitors that are coming to your website and understand what domains are actually visiting your website even before they've given you your email address. So for example, if you're running an event or you're meeting somebody, you can actually track and see what domains are coming back to your website and checking out the information there. And you can go and connect with them on LinkedIn and different places like this as well. And the prospects tool is really handy because you can filter. So if you have those characteristics documented for your ideal buyer, you can actually filter by those as well. So you can filter by city location, for example, or revenue amount. And you can filter out any internet service providers as well. So it's a great way to see what warm prospects are there. Who's actually interested in you? Maybe focus around those. You can also run some paid advertising to attract those prospects as well, to become inbound leads. And you can set up managed notifications, so you can set up daily emails or revisit notifications based on those criteria that you set as well. So it's really handy. You can come in the morning, see who's checked out your website, or who you should be reaching out to. Does anybody have any tools like this or use the prospects tool before? Yeah.
Yeah, we use Hubspot.
Perfect. Have you used the prospects tool much?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, it's useful,
Yeah.
especially as you can filter whatever you wish.
I find it quite good. And it's developed a lot in recent times as well. So I just actually was checking out myself recently. There's a lot more functionality there that was than previous.
Sorry, quick question there from Ian. How can marketing people use prospects too?
I would use it around paid advertising, because obviously you don't have their email addresses anymore, but you know what domains, you have their IP addresses, so you can run retargeting campaigns around those as well. Also, you might think about using smart content, so displaying different information based on that IP or that location to try and attract those people in. You might want to, for example, showcase specific case studies that are more aligned to that specific company. Some other things that you might want to reach out to or think about is trigger events. So other sources of active buyers. So LinkedIn obviously is a great one. You can go in and see what maybe target companies you might have that have recent round of funding, or they have a new CEO, or there's something going on there. It's a great source of information to go on. Google Alerts, it's also really great and free tool. Definitely use it. You can pop in some keywords relevant to your prospects and see what comes back there. Get an alert if there's somebody that has just changed role or a new product that's being developed. And the third one here is Datanyze. Anybody using Datanyze already? Yeah, great. We're using it thoroughly here, and it's a great tool. There's a freemium version of this as well, so it's limited usage, but it's definitely worth checking out. And it gives you insights into what tools or software your prospective customers are using. So when they've installed that software, and you can then predict when it might be up for renewal. Niall, do you use that a lot?
Yeah.
How do you use it?
Yeah, so different ways, as you said yourself, in terms of renewal.
Yeah.
The other thing as well is that if they've purchased similar software, their mentality is that they're familiar with this purchasing process.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, if it's a SaaS piece of software, they'll have purchased another piece of SaaS software, so they know, let's say, how it's configured, the pricing element, what they should go through. So typically if you're in SaaS software, you're going to get a higher conversion rate. So if you can identify that. Using Datanyze as well, you can have a look at different geographic regions. Going back to what you said earlier about the personas and profiles. If you've identified that, you can then push that into Datanyze and get a list of that target.
A lot of useful things there, and to try and focus in on those active prospects that might be a good fit for your organization. Another thing you can do is obviously identify warm contacts within your database that are in existence already. Hubspot makes it really easy to do this, and there's tons of contact properties that you can filter by. Contact properties are just bits of data, so bits of information that you might have. So we focused mainly on the demographic information when we were building out our buyer profile, so locations, regions, size, etc. There's other things that you might want to think about in this quadrant. So demographic, again, doesn't give you much information on intent, but behavior does. So we're talking about clicks, opens, social clicks, form submissions, page views, visits. What are they actually doing to show their interest or intent to purchase? And the frequency of that behavior as well. So as somebody on the lead up to purchase is just about to purchase, you go back and check the website for the information. You might read a blog post, you might check other bits of information. So the frequency increases as you're about to make that purchase. And the recency of that behavior. So other contact properties that you can filter by: last email open date, or recent conversion date, most recent social click or became a lead date. So you can filter and mix and match all of these parameters to get a really good bullseye view of your target contacts and target companies, and who seems to be a good fit to speak with. So this is really good to do. On the left, I just have selected pages seen that contains pricing. So if somebody's checking out your pricing page, they're probably interested or show some interest. Emails clicked is greater than 3, and then I have lead rating, which is based on your lead score by HubSpot, is 4 stars as well. So that might give you a good indication of good fit prospects to reach out to or to connect with. Does anybody have a similar quadrant that they use, or different tactics for segmenting their contacts? Yeah, there's nodding going on there. Is there anything that
Yeah,
you're using?
You do use as well,
Yeah.
focusing geography and city and activity. We track on our website. We use forums as well.
Yeah.
So different forums in our website, and we know where they can be.
Absolutely. And if you have that information, for example, a good fit lead for you might be somebody in Dublin who has filled out a form, and that looks good on paper, but if they did that activity 6 months ago, well, they're no longer a good fit. So having that recency is really important in there as well. And you can use this to also, of course, email and connect and communicate with people. So pulling that list of ideal contacts. The idea is really to start with a worthy starting point and then connect or communicate with them first. So you're talking to warm leads rather than cold calling or just shouting out there your message to somebody who might not want to hear from you. Just recently I've been purchasing some software for different things, and actually went through the process of purchasing accountancy software, which was a bit of a nightmare because finance is not my strong point. But I took out a trial on Sage, and it was great. And I was kind of used to software, and I was going around and trialing it myself. And I was exploring a couple of different other options as well at the same time. And then out of nowhere, with no warning and no nothing, I was in a car, I was on the way to the airport. I get a call from the sales rep from Sage going, hey, I see you've taken out a trial. How's it going? Is there anything I can help you with? And I was like, well, I'm in a car on the way to the airport. Not a great time for me. It was very interruptive because I didn't know this person was calling at this time. And I said, actually, I'm looking to actually integrate with Expensify. Is that something that you can offer? And I said, well, I don't really know. I'm sorry. And that was the end of the conversation. So it wasn't very helpful. It wasn't very friendly. It wasn't really human to human. There was no offer of, oh, I can find out that information, or give me your email address and I can send you some further information. There was no value for me. I can study and research everything on my own in my own time when I want to. So what's the value in speaking to a sales rep? That's really important when you're connecting with somebody and having that conversation, that you're always thinking value first. What can I offer that's of value to the prospect?
Okay, quick one there.
Yeah.
Jack Burns, sorry. Just all I want to know, what would you have done if you were Sage?
I would have contacted them probably by email first, to set up a meeting to book in a specific time to have that conversation. Because you're going through a trial and making a purchase, you want to have time to answer any questions and have a dedicated space in your day for it. You don't want to rush through a conversation like that. And so I would have sent an email with a link to a meeting to book in time.
Just in their time.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And I'm aware that the call is coming through and I'm not in a taxi cab on the way to the airport. Great question though. So basically, what I'm trying to say here is that more emails and calls, doing the same thing and shouting out to disengage prospects and leads isn't really going to get you anywhere. You can do the same things over and over again. You can increase your productivity, but if you're not communicating to the right prospects, the warm leads, you're really not going to get very far. And I think sometimes we can over-automate sometimes and depersonalize our communication, maybe blast out some emails. So scaling back between the two is a good approach. So you want to have some personalization, but you don't want to be writing every single email from scratch, and you don't want to over-automate either. So instead of blasting out thousands of untargeted messages in hopes of somebody's going to come back to me, we've probably all done that, hovered over that send button and blasted out an email at some stage. I know in my early days in marketing, that was kind of the standard practice at the time. Guess what? It didn't really give us much success. So now smaller sends to highly targeted individuals have a much greater impact. In Hubspot, it makes it very easy to do this as well. So there's different templates, sequences, documents, and meetings, and there's loads of other tools that you can do this as well. If you're not using Hubspot, just get your templates and your snippets of bits of information that you're typing every day all the time. Put into a Google Doc to start with. Just document it somewhere. Share the templates that you're using. If there's different sales reps within your organization, maybe they have their own templates. Share what's working best. See and share that information with each other. Is there content that marketing has that sales could use? Is there documentation the product is creating that marketing could use or sales could use? What can help here? So share that content, share the communications that you're sending out to your customers and to your prospects as well. So I'm sending an email to Cara Kennedy in this example here.
Please what?
And this is taken from my own portal, and I have a couple of different templates set up in here. And what I do is I don't just click to include one template. I always customize it just a little bit, and it just can be 1 or 2 words that you change up, or 1 or 2 sentences. It doesn't have to be a huge amount, but one of those 1 or 2 things can make a huge difference to the communication and your click-through rate as well.
Only my name has a capital letter though.
It does, Karen. Yes.
But
Small
not in
c.
Spain though, to be honest.
Sequences, I'll be going into in a few moments. It's just a series of emails that you can send out to disengage leads. Documents is another tool that you can have. So if you're sending out proposals to people, you can see who's actually shared that proposal, how many times it's been viewed, how long it's been viewed. So it gives you a sense of engagement as well. And of course, meetings, that if anybody's not using the meetings link or a calendar link, please do it today. Sign up for something. It is the greatest tool known to mankind. It saves you the back and forth of trying to, are you free on Tuesday afternoon? No, I'm free on Wednesday morning, and this back and forth email. Just get somebody to book in a link, click the link into your calendar, and you can see when the person has availability. And it's great for sending that link in messages or communications on LinkedIn, on email communication. Just makes it very easy for people to book time with you. Snippets is a relatively new feature that's come out, and if you don't want to log into HubSpot and do all those emailing, you can do it on Gmail or Outlook or whatever other tool that you might have. And this is embedded. This is just a screenshot, I think, from Outlook. And snippets are those 1 or 2 liners. You're always sending that exact same case study to prospects, or maybe there's a brochure that you always seem to be sending, or that PDF or whatever it is. Snippets just enables you to copy those 2 liners and insert it straight into your email. So it saves you so much time. So in a couple of clicks, then you have your email customized to your prospect, sent out very quickly. Great tool. If you're not using this, Google Docs or Word Docs, that kind of thing is a good way to just save those kind of bits of information, those snippets that you're sending out on a daily basis to everyone. Sequence is great to engage with leads. So it's a series of emails that you might be sending out to prospects. I know myself, I send out an email and I get very disappointed that not everybody on my list has opened or clicked my email. But people have busy lives. So you're all in here today. You're probably not checking all of your emails all the time. People go on holidays. There's different things that are happening. So don't just try once. Try a couple of times. Give them a chance to actually reply to you. So in this case, it just says, I'm reaching out to you because, so giving context of why you're actually communicating with this individual. Then you're giving value and context to the individual about the benefit of that. Schedule conversations with companies like yours who are prioritizing their marketing and growth, might be able to help you. Have conversations every day, so there's a trust factor included in there. And you can instantly book a meeting here. They just have inserted their calendar. So it's very easy to book in time and engage with them. You're not being salesy here, you're being helpful. That's the aim of the game. After a couple of days, again, same kind of thing. Normally people are interested in 1 of 3 areas. These are the challenges they might face. I'm happy to hop on a quick call to share suggestions for a company name if you're there. And again, meeting URL. So always including a link or something that they can engage in if you're sending an email. What can they do to take that next step? Could be just a simple blog post or a case study with some form of content that they might feel have valuable. The last attempt here is just, my intent is not to be a bother. Worked with similar companies. I wouldn't be contacting you if I didn't think I could help. So you're just being honest, being transparent, being helpful when you can. And this is automatically sent out to individuals in the sequences tool. There's obviously lots of other tools that you can use to do this. And I definitely advise you share your templates. It's amazing. I train with lots of different companies and organizations, and you go into maybe a sales team of 10 or 15 or 20, and I was like, so how many of you are using emails templates? Everybody puts up their hand. How many of you shared your email templates with everyone? No, I haven't. It's like, okay, there's 100 pieces of content here that's not being utilized. Share that information. What's working? Have you changed things? You know, have you optimized your email templates to get more reaction? What's going on there?
On the 3rd email,
Yeah.
how many days you put?
It depends on the person you're trying to reach. So for example, if you're targeting enterprise, I would give it a little bit more space. If it's B2C, it's higher frequency. In this case, it's just every 2 days or so. Yeah. I would suggest a good frequency is 1 to 2 attempts per week maximum. You don't want to be 5 days, 5 attempts. But if you have over 2 weeks, somebody might have forgotten you, or it's a bit too much of a gap as well. It depends on the context. If it's early stage in the buying process, or it's late stage as well. Have you built up that relationship? Have you had conversations with somebody? Yes or no? And you can kind of judge by that. So if you haven't had the conversation, if they don't really know you that well, maybe you just had that initial conversation, you have to respect that as well. Whereas if you've had 5 or 6 calls and you've built up a relationship over time, that's a very different scenario.
The other thing I was struggling actually when I was structuring our drip campaign because, with data protection and all that, it was that kind of a, call. And compliance was wanted to do like bang on 1 day, then 2 days. But then, big debate, like they could be reported to the data protection commissioner if you do it that rapidly.
I would say it's quite high to do that. Yeah, like obviously if you're using double opt-in, so if anyone's not familiar with that, it's just basically when you fill out a form to get a piece of a download or a piece of content, you get a kickback mailer. Please click on this link to opt in. So you're double opting in there. But you're actually receiving the first email already. Then you might receive a second email with the piece of content. So that's 2 emails within a day. Give them some breathing space. You don't want to bombard them with emails. It's not a good idea. They'll just be turned off.
So you say like 7 days, a good one for 3 emails, but after 7 days?
1 to 2 emails per 7 days is kind of a good rough number to go on. And think about it for yourself as well. If you think about your own inbox, would you like to receive 5 emails in 5 days? Maybe.
Shane, when do you quit, or do you just keep sending them emails? Is there a cutoff point or a signal that it's really time to give up?
It depends. You're grasping at straws there by the sounds of it. It depends on how you're going to manage your time. Okay, so if you're spending time on time wasters, it's going to eat into your productivity. So you really should be focusing on scheduling out your time with more active prospects, with warmer leads, with better leads and better contact first. And then if you have time left over, okay, maybe send them one final email. You might reach out to them and just give a breakup email as well. That's what we call it. And suggest, hey, I've contacted you a couple of times. It seems like you're no longer interested. If I'm wrong, please let me know. Just by replying to this email. But for the moment, I take it you're no longer interested, and I'll remove your details from there. And that's perfectly okay. You're cleaning up your database. They might have gone for a competitor or somebody else.
And the thing with, a common thread as well with startups is when it comes to sales, they're afraid to leave the deal on the table because obviously it's your money. It's different to like an enterprise deal where someone else's money, but like it's okay just to leave it on the table and come back to it. So that's something that a sales guy, the top sales guy in Dublin, Steve Vaughan, always says, if you give without a get, then you're not in a sales process. If someone's not giving you anything back, you just leave it on the table and go to the next.
That's a really good point as well, because otherwise you're going to be spending all your time with time wasters, and it's going to suck into your hours of your day, and it's not going to give you the impact or the results that you really need. So great point. And I mean, start out and experiment with that as well. Just maybe say, okay, I'm going to make 5 attempts at connecting. And after 5, if there's no response, I'm going to set that breakup template email, send it out, and then set it and forget.
That was it, because B2C, as you said, it takes more than 2-3 touch points. Yeah. You take around 5 upwards touch points. So yes, exactly that. Just setting depending on the business. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And think about your own inboxes. Just analyze your own inbox. I actually have a folder, because I'm a bit of an email geek, set up for really good emails that I receive or that I've noticed I've responded to. What's the title? What's in it? Is it a long form email? Is it a short email? Is it personalized? Just analyze what's coming into your inbox and see if you like it, then probably your buyers will too. So your aim is to sell the way people are buying. It's really the ultimate thing in men's sales. So after we've identified and we've connected, made that initial connection with your prospect or warm lead, you're going to explore the conversation a little bit more. So you're going to get more information to assess whether they're a good fit lead or not. And this is really important. You don't want to push this. You want to spend time, make sure that you have all the bits of information to make a proper assessment here. Really, really important. Because if you don't, you're either going to waste time down the line and figure out when you're just about to send them the contract, they're actually not a good fit lead, or worse still, they become a customer and then they churn or they leave a couple of weeks later. So you want to have that repeatable, scalable business. You want to make sure they're a good fit, that you're working with good fit leads. Something that I've done in my own, I'm constantly trying things and experimenting and doing different things. Something I've included in my inbound sales process is to include a survey. So I found that a lot of people are maybe booking time with me, but maybe they're not a good fit, or maybe I didn't have enough information to go on to have that initial conversation. So I have an 8-question survey, very, very simple to fill out, and it gives me more context to go on before I have that initial conversation. In the survey is questions around budget and timelines, giving more information about the project scope, what you want to achieve, what challenges you have you gone through this process before, what's your sign-off process like, so we can get all of that stuff out of the way before we even have that conversation, so you're much more engaged. The other thing I found is if somebody's willing to fill in a survey, guess what? They're likely to be more interested, right? So you know if somebody's put in a lot of detail there, they're going to be quite engaged in the sales process as well. And I have a soft sell here. So to get us started, I've created this survey to understand more about the project and your plans. It shouldn't take long to complete. However, if you just don't have time to go through the questions, we can go through them on the call. So I'm just having a soft approach there. Does anybody use surveys in a B2B context for sales? No. Sometimes if there's a more technical product, it can be helpful as well. I know some of the sales engineers here use it also. In the first question here, this is just an example or screenshot from the pre-project client survey that I have. Just simple questions. What are the project deliverables? What are you looking for? How can I help?
PJ's use surveys on the chat here.
Oh, great. Cool. And in what context?
What context, PJ? You want to unmute yourself or just put it in the chat? I can unmute you if you want.
Was it during the sales process or after the sales process?
Tell us, PJ. Nice type.
Don't be shy, PJ.
So we get copies, or can we get copies of the slides? Part of the sales process, they use surveys.
Okay, cool.
And they ask the customer what they want in those surveys.
Brilliant. It's a really good, helpful, very simple thing to do. And I definitely encourage you doing it.
Did you guys were asking to speak?
Yeah, go ahead.
Go for it.
Yeah, sorry, I was tapping in the thing, sorry. So the surveys, we tend to call them quizzes, and we try to ask the customer, find out a little bit about them, in no more than 4 or 5 questions in terms of how we phrased them, to find out a bit about them and what they're really interested in. And depending on how they respond to that, we either might ask them another couple of questions, they're veered off branch logic, or we may contact them directly.
Brilliant, I love that. And what kind of questions do you ask in there? Is it just about their, what they're looking for?
I'll just pull up one here. Give me a second, I'll tell you exactly.
No, it's just interesting to hear. I'm also curious to know. And I love the fact that you're using quizzes. You phrased it as a quiz rather than a survey.
Yeah, people don't like the word survey.
Exactly. Quizzes are much more interesting. Yeah, good point. Yeah.
Where is that gone? Hold on.
You can put it into the chat pane if you can't find it right now.
Actually, I know. Sorry, I know where it is now. Trying to find it.
No worries at all.
Just 1 second.
And you can use that kind of information in a range of different ways in your marketing and your sales process as well. So those little key indicators of buying intent, those bits of information, you can use that to personalize your email messaging, your communications, to increase your conversions on your landing pages. Use the wording that they're using to learn more about your buyers and their intent as well.
So some of the things we might ask, when it comes to, we work and try to support healthcare professionals and patients to communicate more effectively. It has loads of implications in the health sector. So one of the things we asked was, when it comes to optimizing health outcomes, engaging patients, or providing valuable content to healthcare professionals, what's your biggest challenge now? And then we give them 4 options to which to answer, improving patient medical adherence, creating engaging health educational content, delivering updates to busy healthcare professionals, or providing continuous educational and development options to healthcare professionals. So they click one of those, it has to be one. And then they'll be asked another question, tell us a little bit about yourself, and they get 4 options again. And
that's great.
then we ask them a little bit about the role, give them 4 or 5 options, they click that. And then we, depending on how to get, we ask them then for contact details if we don't already have them.
Yeah, all great stuff, because you can also use that in the meetings link as well. If you're using HubSpot, you can just link to that survey. You can also use a landing page as well, just to include that. The landing page and form is just as easy. You have the, if you're using the HubSpot tools, you have access to that as well. There's also other tools that you might want to tap into as well that you might be using, like Eventbrite or webinar software. Do you ask questions when people are signing up to your webinars? You can use that as part of your, to get more contacts as part of your sales process as well. And all of those kind of tools are also, you can integrate with HubSpot. So if you're using Eventbrite, you can integrate that. You can see it on a contacts profile timeline. If you're using webinar software, you can also integrate that with software and see if they've attended the webinar or not, or registered for a webinar. So you can scan that information before having that exploratory conversation. And you can even see down here, in this example, somebody actually saw the article, they logged into the trial. So having that knowledge and information before you pick up the phone is really key.
An interesting thing about that instance, asking the questions, you're really asking the company, you really begin to understand the problem more, because a lot of times companies think they understand the problem, and they do, but they don't often understand that some of the solution that they're giving is really helping the company, and they overlook it. And that's why even with asking the questions, might be interested, is there anything else?
Absolutely.
Like I find so many times, I dealt with one particular that was teaching in the education sector, and one of the things that their software did was it reduced significantly the amount of time it took to correct papers at the end of the season. And they didn't even consider that was a value point. But the value to the teachers was that they now had summer holidays. And if you actually ask teachers, that would be probably one of the pain points they have. But if you don't know that, then you might attract them in with that, and then you can sell them the rest.
Exactly. It's just understanding as much as you can possibly about that. And a great question. Anything else? So just ask those open-ended questions, get more information. So you're doing all the research prior to that call. After the call, you're going to be logging your notes, taking notes, logging the activity. Make sure you have a centralized place for this, using CRM, preferably. Try and avoid the Excel spreadsheets if you can, guys. And you can use snippets to insert a call script if you want to for new sales reps, or just to kind of streamline your sales process. You can create a task as a reminder to follow up for the next call, and schedule your next call with a prospect. So all of the tabs here, I use this quite a lot because it just means you've one window open, you're going through the whole sales process in one window. You don't have to log in and out of all these different tools to get all the research information and to log your notes and the whole thing. It saves a lot of time. But wherever you do it, just make sure it's one centralized location that you can come back to, and that's handy to use. And then the last step is the advise step. So you might have that initial exploratory conversation. You're asking about their goals and the challenges, learning more about them, what their needs are, asking for more information. And when you're going into that advise step, you try and step back from diving into a demo. First, you should know something about them and customize the demo or the experience to their needs. Maybe they don't need to know everything about your product. They're just interested in one or two aspects. Focus in on them. That's okay. So you should also listen for signs of interest throughout the whole sales process. So in here, this is just an example of using the documents tool. So you can see there was 13 slides in this presentation that was shared with Jackie, their prospect in this example. And you can see how much time they spent on each one of those pages, whether they've shared that document with others internally, how much real interest is going on there. So you're more prepared through the sales process and engage appropriately. Also, similarly, if there's no signs of interest, they haven't even opened or clicked on the email that you sent them, or maybe you want to check in to see what's changed there. Always before you're starting a conversation with somebody, just recap what you've learned already. And as Susan said, just ask them, is there anything I've missed? Is there anything else? Things change throughout the sales process, so always be checking in and making sure you have the right information before going on to the next step. And documenting your deal stages. Have any of you have this set up already? Some of you already have, yeah. So this is basically just your deal stages set up. You can set up the probability behind here as well, so you can have a probability score for each one of these stages. This just helps you with forecasting, so you can take control of your sales process to understand, okay, what's likely to come in next month, the month after. It gives you a probability rating and scoring throughout the process. And you can use a drag and drop functionality here. This is also, I use this in a different way as well for my own client work. So I manage the client processes and projects. So I use this as almost like a project management tool for myself. It's very handy and I can see how things are progressing. And you also can use it internally, I've seen, for support or services or different modes as well. So it's a very handy and useful tool, and you can have different pipelines for different sales activities or functions within the organization.
In Hubspot for startups, we use it to manage our partners, so like Enterprise Ireland or Wire or whoever. We'd also use it to onboard partners, so like for the first 30, 60, 90 days, you do a kickoff, you do a training to kind of make sure we keep the customer.
But wherever you do it, guys, it's just good to document that information so you have it on track. If you're pitching for your next round of funding, if you're looking to get people involved as you're scaling and growing, all of these things are so important to nail down your processes, nail down your documentation, so you have a scalable revenue model in place for your organization. And so I just want to take a few moments to see if there's any other questions, any thoughts from today, anything else that you want to share within the room. I'm all ears, so anything you thought was interesting, anything you'd like to implement, anything I didn't discuss today that you'd love to know. Yeah, of course.
Go ahead.
What do you think is the biggest challenge for a startup in building their sales team?
Not knowing what the next 6 months is going to look like. So there's a lot of unknowns for the startup, right? So you don't know what the next 6 months or 12 months looks like. You have a plan and you have an idea of what that might look like. So it's very hard to actually set in place what that might look like. So for example, you need to adapt an agile process. So maybe you don't get that round of funding that you're hoping for. What happens then with your hiring process and those 6 sales reps that you're looking for? You need to change things up. And so I think that can have a big impact. And also things change over time. The product might not be fully developed. So you might be pitching or talking about a different product a couple months from now. Do you have documentation? Do you have a process in place to make that an agile approach as well? So I think change is a big thing, a big challenge for a lot of startups.
So do you have any view on, I know what we say a lot of startups and trying to build their sales teams, and they often bring in salespeople too experienced too early, and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And it's a hard one to get right.
It's kind of a reverse logic. You think, oh, this person has 20 years experience, you know, they were #1 sales rep for a previous organization, let's bring them in. And oftentimes they actually perform at a mediocre level. And it's kind of strange. You think, why could this possibly be? Where you're in a startup, you're in a very different mode than maybe at an enterprise level with 500 or 800 employees. Your sales team is operating in a very different model. And so having startup experience is really good, but having the right level, are they at a scale-up experience, enterprise level experience, or startup experience, and bringing that in with big impact. I've seen it here as well. A lot of people come from maybe a corporate or enterprise environment coming into this fast-paced startup mode. Very difficult, very challenging to adapt to that. It's something to definitely think about. Really good point.
Do you guys have any challenges, like in terms of, like the one I see with startups is that they're trying to learn sales as well as do their product as well as do marketing, and everyone's trying to do the same, like to do one job, but it's actually multiple hats they're wearing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. With that in mind, when in the hiring process, for example, in our case, we were thinking about hiring some interns for sales. Okay.
We can help. Bulb sharing.
We were thinking how to make that role attractive for interns in a way where when you were a startup you don't pay much. Sometimes you're even in unpaid internships. So that's very hard for us because we don't get many applications at all.
I'm gonna hand it over to you guys. Go first. What do you think? What's your?
I think like you want the right person as well. So like think of like the story that you want to tell to your intern. Like think of the type of person that you want and kind of tailor the job description to the person that you want. Which usually we do the other way around. Like we tailor our like CV to the job description. But I think it's completely understandable. But like in a startup, you want a certain type of person. So if they are not dynamic and if they're not ready for the challenge, like they're better off going to a very static place. So I think you kind of think of the intern that you want to kind of tailor the job description. And also like, for example, maybe you can't pay like this person, but you can kind of make very clear what are the takings, because like maybe you can't pay, but you can learn so much in a startup, and you can be very clear. Like in our sales intern description, it was very clear like what we were going to work at, like what we were going to learn out of it. So they might think, okay, I'm not gonna be paid, but I'll be like learning so much. So it's a type of person like I was prepared to come here and like for free for what they were going to teach me. So this is what are we like, you can like not giving them the idea, oh, they will do admin work, but with like you will have your own project, you will be learning this.
And also, what value can you give them?
Yes.
It's an inbound sales process, always thinking about value and what you give. That's huge. And it might not be a monetary value, but it's really other things like skill development and experience.
Yes. Don't give them the idea that they are going to like fill in the holes of the company, just doing like what you can do, but like you are gonna have your own project about this and that, and and like give them something that they feel they will actually. So this is my
Ian D there said, yeah, it's a great point in recruitment. Be clear about what they're learning and developing, because that's all startups can offer.
Very good point.
That's a great guy.
Just to finish up, guys, all the resources, slides, everything I've gone through is going to be on this landing page about inbound.com HFS, Hubspot for Startups. And in there is also an offer. So if anybody's maybe a little bit nervous about getting everything set up on HubSpot, they need a little bit of extra support or just extra training to get set up, I have an offer here for an onboarding package. So within a day, you can get set up on HubSpot, get all your templates done, get everything ready to go, and get the knowledge to be successful with HubSpot as well. Because that's a key thing. Sometimes a lot of people jump into buying a product and tool without having the necessary skills or time or experience to make it successful. Also in here, just on the right-hand side, will be tons of other tools and resources. So I'll be linking to, for example, the content on Inbound, Data Analyze, all the different tools and resources that I mentioned as well. And don't be shy. If you have questions or something pops to mind that you didn't cover off today, just reach out to me. There's no problem. You know what my Twitter is. Send me an email. There's no problem at all. We'd love to help and support you guys and see you guys grow. Thank you very much for your time.
Well done, Vourneen.
Great job, Vourneen. Thanks a million. And guys,